Chaos Gate Daemonhunters is worth playing. It sits in a weird spot, not brand new and not quite old enough to be nostalgic, but it's become one of the standout modern XCOM styled games, mostly because of how it changed and improved on that formula, instead of just reskinning it with a Warhammer theme. This isn't a simple, if you like XCOM, you'll like this video. Instead, I'll break down Chaos Gate Daemonhunters and what it does differently, for better and worse, so you can decide if it's a turn-based tactics game for you. Let's start with the formula itself. XCOM built a template that a lot of tactics games still try to copy today. Research, upgrade, deploy, repeat. Daemonhunters uses that same skeleton, but almost every system inside of it got tweaked. Starting with the main one, combat. XCOM and a lot of other games have the infamous percentage-based hit chances. That 95% chance to hit can seem like a layup and still miss. We've all been there. Chaos Gate removes that entirely. Line of sight, cover, and angles are what matter, with no coin flip to miss on top of it all. If an attack will hit, you'll see that before you commit and know exactly how much damage it'll do. You can even see the clear lines of sight from any square on the grid before you move, making positioning and attacking much more transparent. Cover gets a makeover too. Instead of dealing in percentages, high and low cover decreases or eliminates damage taken from that side by a set amount. This goes for you and the enemies, creating a real strategic incentive to flank and outmaneuver. It's all about the angles. This small change creates a ripple effect. Once hit chances are no longer a gamble, melee stops being one too. In a lot of squad-based strategy games, getting a unit into melee range is more of a last resort, not worth the risk. Here, it's a reliable tool, and even rewarded. Not only do you have surefire damage, but critical hits that can stun, disable weapons, or, my favorite, execute enemies and give all your knights one bonus action point. These are a part of the precision targeting system, and any crit from any weapon will activate it. It's one of my favorite features, and really contributes to that Space Marine power fantasy. Overwatch is a bit different here as well. It's still a reactive tool for covering ground and punishing enemy movement, but can't really be fully relied upon nearly as much as an XCOM. The system uses a small cone so you can see where your knight is covering. Enemies will continue to move while you take your shots, and your knights will fire until their magazines are empty. It does make you step out of full cover to use, but not half, which creates a strategic trade-off and goes back to not feeding into that slow creep Overwatch playstyle XCOM can be known for. Paired with the effectiveness of melee, you can see how Daemonhunters pushes you into more aggressive combat. Then there's willpower. The Grey Knights are a chapter of elite psychic warriors, so willpower is the resource that's burned when they use an ability. You can even use willpower to augment basic attacks and make them do more damage. However, each knight has a finite amount of willpower, and each use of it comes with an extra cost. See, Chaos Gate isn't stacked with mission timers pushing you to evac or eliminate the enemies in X number of turns. There are some, but the real pressure is something called warp surges, tied to the Chaos Bloom, which I'll detail more in the next section. If you're familiar with 40k lore, the Chaos Gods you're fighting against and their power is based in the warp, an alternate dimension of pure psychic energy. Every use of your knight's psychic abilities thin that barrier between dimensions, increasing the warp surge. This is on top of the incursion the Chaos Forces are making into our world already, which increases the warp surge at set percentages during missions every single turn. When that percentage gets to 100, a random effect happens. Enemy reinforcements appear through tears in the warp, debuffs negatively affect your knights, or enemies already on the board get dangerous mutations that make them more powerful or deadly. This will continually happen as you push through missions, which can really add up and make things considerably tougher on your squad. The tactical consequence is that your psychic powers can be used early and often, but there's definitely a risk-reward factor as you'll drive up the surges and things will steadily get worse around you. Underscoring all of these changes is one that's not mechanical: the weightiness of the game. Giant Space Marines in hulking suits of power armor move and feel heavy. Kills and executions carry the brutality the Warhammer universe is known for, even if you're just a casual fan. Different armors and melee weapon options make the difference between playing a tactics game with a 40k coat of paint and a game that actually nails the feel of 40k. If you're into breakdowns like this, systems and mechanical analysis, or just turn-based strategy in general, you should definitely subscribe to the channel to see more videos and content in this same style. Now that I've given you some of the systems, changes, and the how of the game, let's talk about the why. The world that Chaos Gate Daemonhunters is set in, and what's fueling the chaos bloom in the first place. You are aboard the Baleful Edict, a void ship led by Commander Agravain of the Grey Knights chapter. The Grey Knights are specialized hunters of demons, and Agravain has been tracking a powerful bloodthirster in line with the cult of the Chaos God Khorne. Stopping at nothing to finish his foe, the commander flies into a warp storm around a fallen planet, deploying his knights and taking on the demon himself. Commander Agravain manages to banish the demon, but not before taking mortal wounds and falling in battle. With the ship and its crew battered and broken from the Long Crusade, you are appointed temporary command of the remaining survivors. The plan is simple. Get the Baleful Edict back to Titan, the moon of Saturn that serves as the Grey Knights' hidden homeworld. But a member of the Inquisition, whom the Knights are pledged to support, appears along the way and has urgent need of the ship's resources. Investigating signs of a spreading plague from the Chaos God of Disease, Nurgle, Inquisitor Kartha Vakir thinks it will be a short journey in the sector, and she will only need the ship as a base of operations to finish her studies. However, as more about the plague is uncovered, it becomes apparent that the entire sector, if not the galaxy, are at risk. This plague is particularly powerful and has been secretly in motion for quite some time. The seeds of the plague are blooming rapidly, with poxwalkers and other forces of chaos already beginning to invade. It's up to you and the short-handed Grey Knights aboard the Baleful Edict to manage your available resources and put an end to Nurgle's plan. This is done by deploying strike teams of knights, with a maximum size of 4, into turn-based combat missions. You'll spend the majority of your time fighting off cult members, plague marines, Nurglings, and other demonic forces. Expect to be heavily outnumbered. The combat will feel familiar to veterans of turn-based tactics, particularly XCOM, but one thing that Daemonhunters handles very differently is enemy patrols, or pods. Triggering a group of enemies will refresh all action points to your squad, eliminating the issue of discovering a patrol with your last unit and no action points, then having to watch them all move and attack before you can even do anything. Another great feature is that after wiping a patrol, all your knights will get full action points and reload automatically. These two changes work together to not only reward aggressive tactics, but take away some of the bad feeling situations that players tend to find themselves in. Missions generally revolve around the seeds of the plague, whether that be extracting them, protecting infected servitors, or destroying the constructs that spread the bloom. I will say that mission variety is a bit of an issue here, and you'll find yourself playing a lot of similar scenarios and objectives. This is mainly because the way that missions are handled. As time passes or you travel across the sector on the star map, there will be new blooms detected, giving you 3 planets as options to go to. But, especially in the early game, you will not be able to reach all of them in time. This takes away the luxury of being able to choose the missions you might want to do, instead creating choices based around what you can reach or what rewards you currently need the most. Planets can also be lost if they reach corruption level 5. The higher the corruption, the more frequent warp surges occur and the more you'll have to contend with during missions there. Not only that, but losing too many planets will lose you the campaign. All of this ties directly into the strategy layer, managing the research and upgrades on your ship, as well as the corruption creeping across the planets. The Baleful Edict is in bad shape, and early on, just getting the reactors and hull working again will take some time. Eventually, you'll be able to upgrade more impactful things like the speed of your ship and more prognosticars, psychics that can be attuned to specific planets to slow the speed of the corruption. Each upgrade will require a set number of servitors though, which can't be produced quickly but can be gained from mission rewards. I made the mistake of thinking some upgrades like gun batteries or hull integrity didn't really matter much, but random events that can occur while you travel will force you to make decisions, often resulting in compromises or outcomes that shut out certain things for a period of time. This can be as simple as corruption on the ship requiring your tech priest and freezing construction, or as severe as a warp storm stopping you in place completely for a set number of days. There's no predicting when and what will happen. Research is the second part of this layer. Inquisitor Vakir will use the seeds you extract to study and progress the story, in addition to unlocking more stratagems, psychic boons, and benefits to your knights in combat. Grimoires increase the speed of research and are another mission reward that you'll have to choose between. It's a constant juggling act of looking ahead to manage the limited resources you have on hand. Requisition is the final piece of the puzzle, a reward earned in missions that can be used to get recruits, weapons, armor, and gear directly from Titan. Leveling up your requisitions allows you a higher chance to get unique items and war gear, or high-level recruits that you can slot right in to help during your campaign. Speaking of recruits, let's talk about your knights and everything you can do with them. Customization is surprisingly strong, with each specific piece of armor and headgear available to be changed. Knights can only have pre-made surnames, but this is because each of those is voiced, and the knights will say them from time to time. You can still put yourself or your friend's name in for the first name if you want a little more personalization. As far as classes go, Demon Hunters starts you off with 4. Apothecary, the well-rounded field medic and healer. Purgator, the heavy gunner and ranged weapons specialist. Justicar, the tankier frontline class that's able to fill multiple roles. And Interceptor, a mobile melee specialist that can teleport around the battlefield to take out high priority enemies. Each class has a unique skill tree and abilities, with some having specific war gear restrictions. For example, the Interceptors and Purgators are not able to equip heavy Terminator armor. Where the loadouts truly shine, though, is the wide variety that's available. Even choosing base weapons offers multiple options, from the well-recognized force sword to halberds and warding staves, or ranged side cannons, silencers, and incinerators. These aren't just reskins either. Each weapon has unique properties like extra crit chance, more force damage, or different range and auto abilities. Taking this one step further, master-crafted gear has unique cosmetics, in addition to modifiers and special traits to the knight using it. Unique grenades, servo skulls, and accessories can be acquired, and I think a lot of players will be pleasantly surprised at just how many different toys there are to play with. On top of your gear, you'll also unlock stratagems to bring into every mission. Single-use support abilities from the Baleful Edict, ranging from mass teleportation to immobilizing all visible enemies for one turn. These can be game changers, solid options to help when you find yourself in a bad spot. Additionally, there are 4 powerful advanced classes that can be unlocked and recruited, but you don't get access to them until about halfway through the campaign, sometimes even longer depending on RNG. This can be a hit or miss thing, with overall player sentiment being that they aren't always worth the wait and are definitely not absolutely necessary. For more variety in what you can deploy, we have to get into one of the most controversial aspects of Chaos Gate Demon Hunters, the DLC. Since launch, Demon Hunters has had quite a few updates and 3 DLC add-ons, each with their own respective issues. The Castellan Champion Upgrade Pack gives you a legendary Grey Knight from Warhammer lore named Garen Crow. Unfortunately, unless you're a die-hard fan, there's not much reason to use him, as he has preset skills and equipment, and outside of that, doesn't really do much to stand out from the other knights you can recruit. That leaves us with the 2 big DLC packs, Duty Eternal and Execution Force. On its face, Duty Eternal looks great. It adds in a dreadnought that you can use, as well as the Tech Marine class, new mission modifiers, and even a second, smaller ship to cover more ground and hit multiple planets at once. What's not to like? The dreadnought is the biggest highlight for most players, but also probably the biggest drawback as well. While it is incredibly fun to use, it takes multiple story missions to unlock, and even when you don't have it yet, the Technophage Outbreak modifier it adds to missions can spawn enemies with a huge difficulty spike. Due to the reasons I mentioned before, you can't always just avoid those missions, and it can be frustrating to deal with, especially for new players still learning the mechanics of the game. Demon Hunters can struggle a bit with pacing to begin with, and doesn't really hold your hand, so throwing heavily armored enemies and random spikes in difficulty in tends to not feel very good. To top it off, once you do have the Dreadnought, it can only be deployed on certain missions, and any damage done to it is very time-consuming to repair, limiting its available uses even further. The Tech Marine class, on the other hand, is unique and fun to use, and both of these units have a separate currency to upgrade them, so they don't take away from your main squad. To put it plainly, I think most players just jumping into the game would be put off by the difficulty that this DLC adds in. The second big expansion, Execution Force, actually helps to soften the blow from Duty Eternal a bit. Unfortunately, a lot of players were put off from the first DLC and likely never came back to try again with both. The main draw of Execution Force is the ability to recruit Imperial Assassins, with 4 unique and distinct classes to choose from. Unlike the Dreadnought, you get your choice of one assassin fairly early in the game, giving you a powerful unit that I personally don't play without anymore. It's a big help in mitigating some of the enemies and missions added in from the Duty Eternal DLC. However, they do come with some drawbacks of their own. Mainly, the assassins are a bit fragile as the game progresses, classes, and unlike your Grey Knights, are permanently lost once they die. You can recruit new ones, but this costs valuable requisition, which takes away from your main squad of knights as well. Assassins also have a set upgrade tree, with each promotion giving them a new ability or stat increase, and no real choice on the player's part. Lastly, they have an odd disconnect from the main squad, since they don't get any of the benefits from stratagems or support skills that your knights use. Still, I particularly enjoy the Vindikar Sniper Assassin, and highly recommend using this DLC if you plan on playing with Duty Eternal. So the real question left is simple. Is Chaos Gate Daemonhunters the right tactics game for you? If you're coming from XCOM and want something with more predictable combat, viable melee, and a rewarding, aggressive tempo, this is probably one you should pick up. Or if you're a Warhammer fan of the Grey Knights, Death Guard, or turn-based strategy in general, Daemonhunters has deeper mechanics at play than it appears on the surface, and does a great job translating the brutality of the 40k universe. Who is it not for? Players that enjoy the thrill of possible missed shots, or hard timers that push your progress. Difficulty spikes and pacing can be a bit of an issue too, especially with the DLC installed or if you're not used to turn-based tactics games. One other thing worth noting, at the time of this recording, the game still uses de novo DRM and doesn't show any sign of removing it if that's a deal breaker for you. I am curious which side of the comment section is bigger on this one. XCOM veterans who came for the tactics, or 40k fans who came for Nurgle and the Grey Knights? Let me know in the comments below. Chaos Gate Daemonhunters may not be the perfect game. Mission variety could be better, there's some pacing issues, and that classic XCOM thrill of never knowing how a gunfight will play out won't quite be found here. But it took a formula the genre's been using for over a decade and found real ways to improve on it instead of just rehashing. That makes it worth playing. And if you're interested in the continuation of Chaos Gate, the bigger, more ambitious sequel featuring the Deathwatch instead of the Grey Knights is already on deck. You can check out my coverage on that by clicking through to the video that's on screen now.